Hello, dear children. Today, let us study the third chapter of your geography. The name of the topic is Our Changing Earth. The lithosphere is broken into a number of plates known as the lithospheric plates. Boys, the lithosphere, it is the solid outer part of the earth. It is broken into a number of plates which is known as the lithospheric plates. You will be surprised to know that these plates move around very slowly, just a millimeters each year. Here you will surprise, you will wonder, boys, to know that these plates means that lithospheric plates, it move around very slowly. Its movement is just a few millimeters each year. This is because of the movement of the molten magma inside the earth, and this movement, it is because of the molten magma which is present inside the earth. The molten magma inside the earth moves in a circular manner as shown in the activity. The molten magma which is present inside the earth, it moves in a circular manner, a circle as shown in the activity which is given on the left margin of this page. You get through this activity, boys. The movement of these plates causes changes on the surface of the earth. So the movements of these plates, it causes changes on the surface of the earth. The earth movements are divided on the basis of the forces which cause them. Our earth's movements are divided is on the basis of the forces which cause them. The forces which act in the interior of the earth are called as endogenic forces, and the forces that work on the surface of the earth are called as exogenic forces. Boys, you underline this, both the terms. It may ask what are endogenic forces and what are exogenic forces. So you have to know these two. So those forces which act inside the earth are called endogenic forces, whereas those forces that work on the surface of the earth are called exogenic forces. Endogenic forces sometimes produce sudden movements and all the other times produce slow movements. Endogenic forces sometimes it produce sudden movements without knowing, okay? Suddenly it happened, and at the other times it produce slow movements. Sudden movements like earthquakes and volcanoes cause mass destruction over the surface of the earth. Sudden movements, the movements which take place suddenly, for example, earthquakes and volcanoes, it cause mass destruction. It cause very great damages over the surface of the earth. Can you see lithospheric plates which is given on the left margin of this page? Lithospheric plates, the Earth's crust consists of several large and small and some small rigid irregularly shaped plate slabs which carry continents and the ocean floor. Tick mark this one. Now let us see volcano. Okay, here we find sudden movements. These are earthquakes and volcanoes. These are the sudden movements so which cause mass destruction over the surface on the earth. Now let us see what is volcano. A volcano is a vent opening in the earth's crust through which molten material erupts suddenly. So a volcano is a vent when it's opening in the earth's crust through which molten metals which are in the molten status, they used to erupt suddenly. See here, a level diagram of volcano is given here, boys. So you need to draw this level diagram. Okay, you have to name all these different, it has mentioned. Draw it nicely, and you can color it also. Similarly, when the lithospheric plates move, the surface of the earth vibrates. In the same manner, when lithospheric plates means the solid outer layer of the earth's plates, it move, the surface of the earth vibrates. At the time, the surface of the earth, it moves continuously and rapidly to and fro like that. The vibrations can travel all around the earth. This vibration, this movement, it can travel all around the earth. These vibrations are called earthquakes. So these vibrations of tremor, they are called earthquakes. The place in the crust where the movement starts is called the focus. Underline this one. What is focus? So the place in the crust where this movement starts, where the earthquake starts, is called the focus. The place on the surface above the focus is called the epicenter, and the place which is there on the surface above the focus, it is called epicenter. Mark this one also. What is focus? What is epicenter? You have to know this. Vibrations travel outwards from the epicenter as waves. Greatest damage is usually closest to the epicenter, and the strength of the earthquake decreases away from the center. See, greatest damage, much destruction is usually found closest to the epicenter. Okay, what is epicenter? It has already discussed, boy. So much damages took place to the closest to the epicenter, and the strength of the earthquake, it goes down away from the epicenter. If the distance is at far place, then the strength of the earthquake, it goes decrease. Boys, see here word origin, and apart from this activity, another activity has given here. You need to practice it yourself. And there are 3 types of earthquake waves. Mark this one also. Okay, how many types of earthquake waves are there? If it asks, you have to say there are 3 types of earthquake waves. They are P waves or longitudinal waves, S waves or transverse waves, L waves or surface waves. Try to find out the properties of these waves from the encyclopedia. Although earthquakes cannot be predicted, earthquakes no one can say it will happen when, okay? The impact can certainly be minimized if we are prepared beforehand. So, though earthquakes we cannot predict, we cannot say when will it happen, but action can certainly be minimized if we are prepared beforehand. Okay, if beforehand, if we tackle it, it can certainly be minimized. This action can be minimized. Some common earthquake prediction methods adapted locally by people include studying animal behavior. Fish in the ponds get agitated. Snakes come to the surface. Some common earthquake prediction ideas. Prediction here means forecast. Some common earthquake forecast. Forecast means which we can know before happening. Okay, symptoms like that. So prediction methods adapted. Adapted means modify locally by people include studying animal behavior. With the behavior of animal, it can be predicted. Fish in the ponds get agitated before that means this earthquake happen. Fish in the ponds they get feeling okay agitated. Snakes come to the surface. See here earthquake a case study. Just get through. Know it. Then another activity. This activity also you have to see. Then to your left margin of this page, see here an earthquake is measured with a machine called seismograph. Okay, it may ask what is seismograph or which device is used to measure uh, the movement of an earthquake, how strong is the earthquake. To know it, a device is used which is known as seismograph. The magnitude of the earthquake is measured on the Richter scale. A Richter scale is here. So magnitude of the earthquake it can measure with the help of this Richter scale. An earthquake of 2.0 or less can be felt only a little. If the earthquake its movement is 2.0 or less, it can be felt only a little. An earthquake over 5.0 can cause damage from things falling. So if it is 5, okay, of Richter scale there, then it can cause damage from things falling. A 6.0 or higher magnitude is considered very strong and 7.0 is classified as a major earthquake. So see there different scales it has given. Okay, earthquake preparedness. What preparedness will you take? Will you take or do? Let us see. As and when an earthquake happen or before that means occurring, if there is any prediction of this earthquake, then what preparedness will you take? Where to take shelter during an earthquake? This is very important, boys. If an earthquake is occurring, where should I take the shelter? Where should I sit or stand? At any cost, that means we should not stand, but see here, safe spot under a kitchen counter, table or desk against an inside corner on or wall. Stay away from fireplaces, areas around chimneys, windows that shutter, including mirrors and picture frames. You need to stay away from this. Then be prepared, spread awareness amongst your friends and family members and face any disaster confidently. So you have to prepare yourself. So spread this awareness among your friends and family members, and you need to and face disasters in a self-assured way. These are the preparedness which is necessary here. Major landforms. The landforms is being continuously worn away by two processes: weathering and erosion. Landscape was means visual features of an area of land. So visual features of land is being continuously worn away by two processes. It used to run away or break down by two processes. They are weathering and erosion. Now let us see what is weathering. These are also important for your examination perceptive voice. Weathering is the breaking up of the rocks on the earth's surface. Weathering, it is the breaking up of the rocks which are there on the surface of the earth. Erosion is the wearing away of the landscape by different agents like water, wind, and ice. See boys, erosion, it is the wearing away of the landscape by different agents, means wash away or taking away of land features by different agents of gradation such as water, wind, and ice. The eroded material is carried away or transported by water, wind, etc., and eventually deposited. So the eroded material, those material which has been eroded by these agents of gradation, they are carried away or transported by water, wind, etc., and at the end they are deposited, they are piled up somewhere. This process of erosion and deposition create different landforms on the surface of the earth. So this type of erosion, breaking down and pile up, erosion and deposition, it create different landforms. Different landforms are created by this erosion and deposition on the surface of our earth. Work of a river. Now let us see what are the work of a river. The running water in the river erodes the landscape. When the river tumbles at a steep angle over very hard rocks or down a steep valley side, it forms a waterfall. See, the running water or the flowing water in the river, it used to break or erodes the landscape land feature there. When the river tumbles means falls suddenly, boys. When the river falls suddenly at a steep angle over very hard rocks or down a steep valley side, it forms waterfall there. See the right margin of this page, boys. There are here. Do you know? There are thousands of small waterfalls in the world. The highest waterfall is Angel Falls of Venezuela in South America. Come on, tick mark which is the highest waterfall in the world. You have to say uh, Angel Falls, okay? Angel Falls of Venezuela. It is in South America. It is the highest waterfalls in the world. The other waterfalls are Niagara Falls, located on the border between Canada and USA in North America, and Victoria Falls on the borders of Zambia and Zimbabwe in Africa. Now let us continue walk of a river. As the river enters the plain, it twists and turns, forming large bands known as meanders. Come on, underline this one also. What is meander, boys? See here, as the river it enters the plain, it twists. Twist means form into a band and turns, forming large bands, which is known as meanders. Due to continuous erosion and deposition along the sides of the meander, the ends of the meander loop come closer and closer. Due to a continuous erosion, due to that means erosion it took place again and again, and deposition also along the side of the meander, the ends of the meander loop come closer and closer. In due course of time, the meander loop means was a shape produced by a curve that bends round and crosses itself. Okay, that is called loop here. So, meander loop cuts off from the river and forms a cut-off lake and called an oxbow lake. So, this is how that means it forms. Okay, and then it is called an oxbow lake. At times, the river overflows its banks. At times, what happens? The rivers, it overflows its sides. This leads to the flooding of the neighboring areas. It leads what? Of course, that means flooding in the surrounding areas or nearby areas. As it floods, it deposits layers of fine soil and other material called sediments along its banks. As in when it floods, was it used to deposit or submit layers, okay, piles of layers of fine soil and other material which is known as sediments along its sides, along the sides of the river. This leads to the formation of a fertile floodplain. It leads what to form a fertile floodplain. The raised banks are called levees. As the river approaches the sea, the speed of the flowing water decreases and the river begins to break up into a number of streams called distributaries. Uh, Boys, as the river started from say any higher elevation, from mountain or from any higher than features, it reaches to the plain. Then after that it approaches towards the sea. As and when it approaches the sea, the speed of the flowing water it goes down, it decreases, and the river starts to break up into a number of streams called distributaries. There that means river it started to break up into a number of streams which is called distributaries. Distributaries means a branch of a river that does not return to the main stream after leaving it. The river becomes so slow that it begins to deposit its load. So at that time, at that course, okay, of a river, the river it becomes so slow. Meanwhile, it begins to it begins to deposit its lot. Each distributary forms its own mouth. The collection of sediments from all the mouths form a delta. See, each distributary, each branches of the river, it forms its own mouth. So the collection of sediments, whatever it brought, whatever things, soil, mud, whatever it brought, from all mouths it forms a delta. See there, it has given uh, the diagram of a delta in figure 3.6. Work of a she webs. The erosion and deposition of the she webs gives rise to coastal landforms. See, the erosion, the breaking down, and the deposition to summit or pile up of the she webs gives rise to coastal landforms. It gives rise or form of the coastal landforms. She waves continuously strike at the rocks. She waves, it always hit forcibly. Strike means hit forcibly at the rocks. Cracks develop there. As it hit forcibly, so cracks develop here. Over time, they become larger and wider. As time passes, they become larger and wider. Thus, hollow-like caps are formed on the rocks. In this way, hollow-like caps it formed on the rocks. They are called she caps. They are known as she caps. As these cavities means empty spaces with a solid object. As these cavities become bigger and bigger, only the roof of the caps remain, thus forming she arcs. See, as these cavities it become bigger and bigger, only the roof of the caps it remain, and in this way forming she arcs. Further erosion breaks the roof and only walls are left, and in this way continuous erosion it breaks the roof and only walls are left there. These wall-like features are called stacks. So these wall-like features they are known as stacks. Stacks means a pile of objects. The steep rocky coast rising almost vertically above seawater is called sea cliff. The steep rocky coast which is rising almost vertically above seawater it is called sea cliff. All these terms, boys, you have to know. The she moves deposit sediments along the shores, forming beaches. The she webs, okay, deposits sediments along the shores, along the side, okay, it forming beaches. Beaches means a pebbly or sandy shore, okay. Work of ice. Glaciers are rivers of ice which to erode the landscape by bulldozing soil and stones to expose the solid rock below. Glaciers, glaciers means here you know that it's ice, okay. You can see the frozen ice. They are a rivers of ice, okay, and which to erode. They too, these rivers of ice also is to break or erode the landscape by bulldozing. Okay, bulldozing means demolishing. Okay, demolishing soil and stone to expose. Expose means make visible by covering it, okay? The solid rock below. Glaciers curve out deep hollows there. So glaciers carve out deep hollows in the air. As the ice melts, they get filled up with water and become beautiful lakes in the mountains. As in when ice melts, they get filled up with water and become beautiful lakes in the mountains. The material carried by the glaciers, such as rocks, big and small, sand, and silt, gets deposited. Here, the material which are carried by the glaciers, such as rocks, big and small, whether big rock or small rock, sand and silt, gets deposited. It settles somewhere. These deposits form glacial moraines. So when it formed in such manner, okay, they form these glacial moraines. See the formation of glacial moraines. This one, okay. Now the last end part of the chapter is work of wind. Wind means strong air is called winds, boys. Have you ever visited a desert? Try to collect some pictures of sand dunes. Okay, talks to you whether you have visited a desert and you have been asked to collect some pictures of sand dunes. With the help of your mobile, you can search it, boys. An active agent of erosion and deposition in the deserts is wind. So, an active agent of erosion means breaking down and deposition again pile up in the deserts is wind. So, wind affect it, okay? Wind cause it. In deserts, you can see rocks in the shape of a mushroom. In desert region, you will find rocks are in the shape of a mushroom, commonly called mushroom rocks, and they are known as commonly as mushroom rocks. Winds erode the lower section of the rock more than the upper part. There, what happened? Winds it used to erode, okay, taken away the lower section of the rock more than upper section, upper part. Therefore, such rocks have narrower base and wider top. In this way, such rocks they have narrower base and top is wider. When the wind blows, it lifts and transports sand from one place to another. When the wind it blows, it lifts, it is to take out and transfer sand from one place to another place. When it stops blowing, the sand falls and gets deposited in low hill like structures. When it stops blowing, the sand falls and gets deposited in low hill like structure. Low hill like that structure it formed there. These are called sand dunes. They are called sand dunes. When the grains of sand are very fine and light, the wind can carry it over very long distances. When the grains of sand they are very fine and light, the wind can carry it over a long distances. When such sand is deposited in large areas, it is called loess. When the type of sand is deposited or piled up in large areas, it is called loess. Large deposits of loess is found in China. So large deposits of loess we can find it in China. So here is the end of the chapter. Thank you all.